You may have already seen the book. There are a variety of interviews that our next guest has done, but I thought, we need to talk about this. So let's do it. Dr. Ezekiel J. Emanuel is a bioethicist, a health policy expert, oncologist, and a vice-provost at the University of Pennsylvania. And he has written a book with, I think, arguably perhaps the best title of any book so far in 2026. It is called Eat Your Ice Cream, 6 Simple Rules for a Long and Healthy Life. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel is on the line. Dr. Emanuel, thanks so much for being with us today. First question I need to ask is, whose idea was it to call the book that? Yours or the publisher's?
Neither. How about
wow.
that? So I have a whole section about Eat Your Ice Cream, but actually one of my agents, book agents, came up with the title when my original title was one that the publisher did not like. And once everyone saw it, it was like, the big light going off. Yes, this is genius. This is the right one. As a matter of fact, my brother, who is, as you may know, a very big Hollywood producer and really knows something about appealing to people, wanted to give her some big award for coming up with this title because he thought it was one of the best he'd ever heard.
I would always be remiss if I didn't ask you what your idea for the title would have been.
Don't be a schmuck.
Also a good title, by the way, for a book. But
yeah, but here's the difference. One is negative, don't be.
Yeah.
And the other is really positive, and it goes to the heart of the book, which is, look, you're going to pursue wellness, but you got to make it work for your life. You got to retain the joy in life, and ice cream is sort of, for me, the embodiment of joy in life.
So, that's clearly the overall message here, right? It's something that makes you happy, and obviously, as you're pointing out in the book, being happy is in fact important to longevity.
Yes. And one of the things is, as I say, look, you're going to exercise, you're going to eat healthy food, you're going to sleep, you're going to make friends and keep friends. You're going to do that for decades if it's going to improve your health, improve your wellness, and improve the length of your life. So you can't force yourself to do those things, by self-denial. That's why most people fail on diets, because it's about self-denial. So you have to figure out how to make these things joyful for you, how to actually really like doing the exercise, like eating healthy, and it's possible. And there are added pleasures which may not be on a wellness diet. I love, for example, my mom's cheesecake. I make my mom's cheesecake every few months because it's so wonderful, right? It's not on a wellness diet, but having it once every few months isn't going to, make me be unhealthy or die younger. It's doing that kind of stuff every day that's the problem.
So part of this is, as you're describing, is the everything in moderation is not a bad way to go.
That's a very good principle to live by, yes.
Let me go to something else, because again, we're starting to hear more and more people talking about this now. One of the things you also mentioned is being more social, because being alone, the older you get, actually turns out to be physically bad for you as well.
Yes, it's bad on every dimension. It's bad for your health, it's bad for your longevity, and it's bad for your happiness. And, we're social animals. We've known this for 3,000 years, as long as there's recorded human history. Man works best by working with other people, living with other people, enjoying life with other people. That's why we have a big forebrain. That's what that forebrain is, navigating social relationships. And we, unfortunately, have become increasingly socially isolated and lonely, and that's been associated statistically with shorter lifespans. So there are lots of studies. Here's one from the United States, 20,000 people age 50 and above that they followed and measured the number of friendships they had, how often they spend time with people, the quality of those friendships. And it turned out people who had more friendships, richer quality, had a 25% less chance of dying in the subsequent 8 years, right? And there's over 3 million people who have been studied for that kind of association, all showing the same thing. And that's true in China, it's true in Sweden, it's true in Australia, true in the United States, and true in Canada. And one of the ironies, and this you probably appreciate, is, people who are introverts, about 25 to 30% of the population is introverted. Even when they actually live happier, live longer, and live healthier if they actually interact. It turns out if they force themselves to act extroverted, make friends, talk to people, they actually are better off and happier. That is an unexpected finding. So even if we have some introverts listening, getting those friends, having those friends, really, really important.
Yeah, there's that line too that you mentioned about even dining alone, which you don't think about, right? You go home from work, if you don't have any social connections, you end up eating alone. And if you do that over and over and over again, that, I guess, works against you. So the idea is just, go have dinner with somebody else. It doesn't even matter who, just somebody from work, anybody at all is better than eating alone.
100%. I'll tell you a little story. I have a research assistant of mine. He moved into a new apartment. Right across his apartment was a brand new restaurant. And he goes there and he's sitting and eating at the bar counter. And he's like, I'm not living the book I just worked with Dr. Emanuel on.
Wow.
So he asked the bartender right across. He says, this is a new place. Where did you work before? Not a very complicated, highfalutin question. And she started talking, and she mentioned that she's, trying to get a master's in health administration simultaneously. And he says, well, I work in health policy. And they began to talk about American healthcare and what each is learning about it and things like that. And then some guy down the bar said, oh, I remember you, to my research assistant. You were in my film class in college, and you were really into films and had some great comments to make. And he sat there for 45 minutes talking to two people he'd never met. And he left the restaurant feeling great. That's the kind of social interaction we have to encourage. And, say she shut him down. She just said nothing. Would he have lost anything? Absolutely not. Instead, he gained a lot by just having a conversation.
That's a terrific example. I'm not going to have enough time, but I want to get to a couple of things that you also mentioned, because this is something that's talked about a lot. Retirement, right? There are people thinking, okay, I've worked hard all my life, be it at 55, 65, whatever the age. What do you have to say about that?
Well, unfortunately, you maybe did work hard, and it's probably actually, ironically, been good for you, because work keeps your brain young and active. And, I don't know your vision of hell, but my vision of hell is all the rest of my body is really working well. My heart's working well, my kidneys, my lungs, everything. But my brain is not. I've got dementia or some other brain problem. That's hell. And the way to keep your brain engaged and active is to have challenges, have hobbies, do social interaction. All of those things occur at work. And when you stop working, one of the things that happens is the social connections and social network fall away. The challenges fall away. You might think, I'm relaxing, but in fact, your brain is also deteriorating. And so doing more, staying more engaged through work, really, really important. You can retire, but if you retire, you have to plan well. How are you going to replace that social interaction? How are you going to replace the mental challenges? What are the hobbies? Maybe you'll volunteer at a school or volunteer at a library or a food pantry or, an animal shelter. Those are the kinds of things you have to introduce into your life. So you just can't go to, a beach and drink pina coladas. That's not a very good way of retiring. That won't be good for your brain.
Or play golf all day.
Yeah. You said it, I didn't.
Okay. Last thing before we run out of time, I want to get back to what we started with. On the Don't Be a Schmuck section, what do you want to point out in there?
You shouldn't take unreasonable risks. Look, life is full of risks. It's not zero. The most risky thing most of us do on a daily basis is start the car engine. So that's my level. All right, that's a sort of reasonable risk. We take it every day. We're willing to live with it. Things that are much more risky than that, we shouldn't do unless they have huge benefits to us. And there are lots of things people do that are risky that don't have huge benefits to them. Smoking is obviously one of them. Vaping is another one. Not taking your vaccines is another one. Not taking your cancer screening test is yet another one. And I looked around, and the absolute most risky thing you could do is climb Mount Everest, because the chances of dying while climbing Mount Everest, 1 in 100, all comers, including the expert mountaineers, the Sherpas, everyone. And if you're over 59, the chance of dying are 1 in 25. That is by definition a schmucky move. Nothing could be that rewarding that you do that, for some bragging rights. It's very risky and just doesn't seem worth the risk. You're not getting a big benefit.
Kind of like the guy who climbed the 101-story tower in Taiwan last week.
Well,
and he's only in his 20s, I think. So there you go.
Yes.
I
there
will
are
just
people where this is their life, but that's different. That's not most of us.
Yeah. One last thing. You mentioned all the other things, smoking, vaping. I know alcohol, because we're finding out now that, no amount of alcohol is good for you. Where do you come in on that?
I think most people are whipsawed by what we're reporting on alcohol. 1 year it's wine is great, red wine, drink that. The fact of the matter is, from a physical standpoint, alcohol adversely affects your liver. It's associated with 7 types of cancer. It affects your brain. It increases your dementia risk. It also disrupts your sleep. So from a physical standpoint, not that good. But we have to recognize it also lubricates social interactions, which are very good. And so there's going to be a trade-off here, and it's important to understand. So there are you got to drink, if you're going to drink alcohol. I happen to be a teetotaler, but if you're going to drink alcohol, you have to do it in the right way. No binge drinking. You don't sit there and drink 5, 6, 7 drinks in one sitting. You should not drink alone. It should actually be social. And the last one is probably the right level, if you're going to drink, is like 3 or 4 drinks per week. That's the right level. There's some data that can be good.
All right, we will leave
it.
So
that's where I come down.
Dr. Emanuel, I want to thank you so much for your time. Absolutely, really appreciate it today. And best of luck with the book, although I don't think you're going to need it.
Thank you very much. My best to all the Canadians out there.
Take good care. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.